bubble. And a bubble means that there's unreality involved. People are buying things that aren't real somehow. And yet, Peter, American higher education is such that students from around the world are clamoring to get into Stanford or Harvard or name any other, really at quite a low level into the ranking tables, you'll find foreign students trying to get into American schools. Explain.
Well, we have a bubble in education, just like we had a bubble in housing in the last decade or in internet stocks in the 90s. It's reflected in the fact that people are spending more and more. The colleges costs have gone up by 400% after inflation since 1980. You now have over $1 trillion in student debt. And even though in many cases it still is somehow, it makes sense for people to do it because they get this credential that's so important for all these other things. It is a somewhat parasitic system. You know, it's like a very, very expensive IQ test that's being administered, where an IQ test would cost $25. Harvard education costs $250,000. And so yes, once you have that credential, you get a better job, but it's an incredibly high tax that's being extracted. When people use the word education, that's always an incredible abstraction already. And we should be talking about, like, what specifically are you learning? Is it like STEM? Is it science, technology, engineering, math? Is it real liberal arts where you're actually studying the humanities? Once you use this abstraction, it can mean anything. You can think of economically as education and investment. Is it a four-year party? Is it a consumption decision? Is it an insurance policy people are buying? Or is it, as I claim, in many cases just a tournament where the value actually consists of the fact that these colleges exclude people primarily? And if you were president of Harvard or any of these elite universities, the one thing that would get you fired right away would be to dramatically increase the enrollment. In a normal business, you have the entire world clamoring to get in. You'd say, okay, we're going to increase enrollment by 20% or 100% over, maybe a 10, 20-year plan. You don't have to do it right away. But because we're offering such a great education, obviously more people should have it. And I think the only sort of business that wouldn't increase, it's like a crazy nightclub. It's like Studio 54 or something like that, where you have just a long line of people getting in, and the more exclusive you make it, the more valuable it is. So it masquerades as something positive sum. In reality, it's very zero sum.
I said scathing. That applies. So if it's a bubble, in what way will the bubble pop?
It's hard to say exactly how it ends, because one of the reasons that we've put so many resources into the education system as it is that people can't envision any kinds of alternatives. They can't envision doing anything different. What I think will happen is that we will start to see more alternatives. And I've never said nobody should go to college or anything like this. I think we should just have more choices. It should not be that you go to Yale or you go to jail. It should not be that you have to get a college degree. And the analogy that I've suggested is that in some ways I think the universities face a crisis somewhat similar to that of the Catholic Church in the early 16th century, 500 years ago, where you basically have a unitary system. There's one way, and it's sort of a secular, atheistic version of the Catholic Church. It's like an atheist church, where your salvation consists of getting a college diploma. If you don't get a diploma, you will go to hell, and there's no salvation outside this university system. It's costing more and more. The indulgences are getting more corrupt, and I think the disturbing message that I have, which is similar to that of the 16th century reformers, is that there's not any formula, and that people have to figure out a way to save themselves. And that's a disturbing message, because we'd like to have a formula.